Welcome back to another episode of No Shame with Shane. I'm your host, Shane Fordham, with all the shameless sports takes. The Pacers are about to get embarrassed, y'all. Pacers are about to get embarrassed. It's about to get really bad for the Pacers. I got Oklahoma City Thunder beating the Pacers in 5 games. It's going to be a 5-game series. The Pacers are going to get one game at home. I think they can get at least one, but I definitely think it's more likely we'll see a sweep in the finals as opposed to a competition. Like, as opposed to seeing an interesting series, like count wise, I think we're more likely to see a sweep. Now, I do think it's going to be entertaining basketball. Like, I don't think true basketball fans can look at this series and think, oh, this is going to be boring. Like, we're talking about two talented, deep teams, two teams that are really good at moving the ball, that are great at playing defense, that can put up numbers. We're gonna see some just genuine quality basketball in this series. I just don't think the end result will be that balanced. I don't think the end result will be that balanced. I think OKC is getting this done in 5, but even though the two play styles are similar, talented teams can do a lot of different things. They both have size. They can both run, just get out and run. They can play fast. They can slow down the tempo if they need to. I just think everything that the Pacers can do, the Thunder can do better. Like the Pacers have size, but the Thunder have more size in Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hardenstein. The Pacers can get streaky and put up points, but the Thunder can dominate on the scoreboard. They have legit scorers. Pacers have guys that can get hot, that can get streaky, that can find hot streaks. The Pacers have consistent scorers. They have consistent scorers, especially up until late in MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams, a guy who is improving as the postseason continues. Chet Holmgren, a guy who can also put up points. Like, the Pacers have an emerging star in Tyrese Haliburton, a guy who can take over games, who has moments where he can dominate and be the determining factor in the game. He can be. He has the potential to be. He's an emerging star. One of the better manipulators in today's game. He has that ability. The Thunder have a legit top 3 player in the NBA in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Thunder have an MVP, a guy who not only can, but will and does consistently dominate and take over games. Whether it's scoring, whether it's playing defense, whether it's moving the ball around, using the weapons around him. Like, everything Tyrese Haliburton can do, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander does better. Everything the Pacers can do as a team, the Thunder does better. From scoring, from playing defense, from rebounding, and from getting out and running. Finishing in fast break situations. They do everything better than this Pacers team, which is why the Thunder are going to get this done in 5 games. They're going to get it done in 5 games. If you're looking at the Thunder and the Pacers, I mean, the Pacers are really just outmatched offensively and defensively. Like, this isn't like the Thunder are unlike any other team that this team has ever seen in the playoffs, especially these past 2 years. Like, the Thunder are used to having the edge on teams through their depth. They do have an arsenal of weapons to use on the offensive end. They got good two-way players that can help on offense, but that can also play lockdown defense, but they're playing a team for the first time ever in their sort of postseason run over this year and last year. They're playing a team that they don't have an edge on, really. They don't have an edge on. Like, usually the teams they've seen, they're either more talented or they have more depth in regards to their opponents. That's been the Pacers' bread and butter. If they're not more talented, they have more depth. If they're not deeper, or if they're not head and shoulders deeper than the opposing team, they have more talent. Like they and if they're not more talented or deeper, they have the coaching and Rick Carlisle. For the first time in their postseason run, they're playing a team that they don't have an edge on. Like they don't necessarily have an edge up in the coaching because Mark Daigneault has done just as good of a job coaching his team as Rick Carlisle has. Now, of course, Rick Carlisle has that championship DNA. He's got the experience. But, I mean, this Thunder team has been knocking on the door for the past 3 years now, since Daigneault has taken over, has sort of started his campaign in OKC. So they don't necessarily have an edge up in the coaching aspect in this matchup. They don't have an edge up in the depth because the Thunder are just as deep, if not deeper, than this Pacers team. And they're all young. Like all the guys for the most part on this Thunder team are young. Like they got a lot of guys who can score, who can rebound, who can defend, both in the starting lineup and off the bench. So they don't have an edge up in the depth. But then they also most certainly don't have an edge up in the talent aspect. The Thunder are definitely more of a talented team than the Pacers. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is more talented than Tyrese Haliburton. Jalen Williams is more talented than Nesmith. Lou Dort is more talented than Nembhard in regards to defense, being a defender. I mean, that's a defensive player of the year candidate. Chet Holmgren, because of his size, you could say he's more talented than Pascal Siakam. That's really, I mean, that's in regards to looking at the talent ratio from these two teams. I mean, that's really the closest race between Pascal Siakam and Chet Holmgren, just because of what we've seen Pascal Siakam capable of doing. Someone else in the Pacers, in on that Pacers team who has championship DNA. But because of his age, his size, his ability on offense that we have seen, what his size allows him to do on defense, you could say Chet Holmgren is more talented than Pascal Siakam. Like it's like the Pacers don't have an edge up really in any major category in regards to the Thunder. They don't have the usual advantages that they are used to having in these postseason matchups. The Thunder are a totally different beast for this Pacers team. The Thunder is really unlike any other team that the Pacers have had to play in the postseason. They're used to seeing teams that aren't as talented, aren't as deep, aren't as well coached, and a lot of the times aren't as healthy. Like a lot of the times, health plays into the Pacers' advantage as well. They just happen to be healthier than a lot of the teams that they end up seeing in the postseason. Whether it's a banged up Bucks team, a banged up Cavs team, a banged up Knicks team, so they're used to having 1 to 2 key advantages in their matchups in the playoffs. They don't have that in this series against the Thunder. They don't have that against the series. But then looking at the Thunder's biggest advantage in this series, or depending on how you look at it, at least one of their biggest advantages in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, looking at Shai and how he matches up against this. Well, really, that's not even fair to say, because the Thunder have a lot of advantages in this series. Like I said, the Pacers are outmatched defensively and offensively. If you're looking at what this Thunder team has on their roster, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, Shai, Hardenstein, Chet, five guys who can be defenders, but who can also contribute on the scoring end. Like if you're comparing this series for the Pacers and the Knicks series for the Pacers were able to beat the Knicks because they were deeper. They were deeper. That was really the main reason, because they were deeper and a little more healthy, slightly more healthy. But the main reason is they were deeper than the Knicks. Like, you had you had two scorers you really had to worry about consistently on this Knicks team. Obviously, Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. Two scorers. Looking at the Pacers, they have multiple defenders in their lineup that they could rotate off, that they could rotate on Brunson and Cat. Like, you had in that series, you saw Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith guarding Brunson for most of that series. It was one of the two of them that was on Brunson for a majority of that time. Andrew Nembhard getting 5 steals in the first half on Brunson to close out Game 6. A main reason why they were able to close out that series in that way, keeping Brunson to like 19 points. But you had like Brunson had to put up with multiple defenders in that series. Karl Anthony Towns. For Karl Anthony Towns, it was either Pascal Siakam or Miles Turner that were guarding him for a majority of that series. Two defenders Karl Anthony Towns had to worry about. That allowed that their depth allowed their defenders to stay fresh in those matchups. If like whenever like Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns always had someone on them that posed a threat. Jalen Brunson, but the thing is, whoever was on them also was fresh because of the rotation. Like, Jalen Brunson either had Nesmith or Nembhard on him. When Nembhard was on him, Aaron Nesmith got to take a little break guarding someone else who wasn't as consistent scoring, like Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby. If Aaron Nesmith was on Brunson, Nembhard then got to take a little more of a rest. A little more of a rest on those other guys. But then by the time when it was time to rotate back, they had more energy to sort of suppress Jalen Brunson. Now, Jalen Brunson was still dominant in that series, but having two somewhat well-rested defenders rotating on him made it a much harder series for Brunson. You could tell. He was frustrated. He had to work hard every possession. Same with Cat. Looking at that rotation between Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner. Like, if one of them, like if Pascal Siakam was on Cat, the other one Miles Turner got to take a little more of a break on Mitchell Robinson or OG Anunoby, which depending on what the Knicks starting lineup was in that series. They switched it up a few times, but whoever wasn't guarding Cat got to take a little more of a break guarding Mitchell Robinson, because Mitchell Robinson isn't a scorer. And if you foul him, he's most likely going to miss 1 to 2 of those free throws, one or both of those free throws. If Miles Turner was on Cat, Pascal Siakam got to take a little more of a break on Mitchell Robinson, where then Miles Turner was now more rested to be able to contend and suppress Karl Anthony Towns. So like they were able to do more of a rotation against this Knicks team. They won't be able to do that with the Thunder. The Pacers are going to be spread more thin against this Thunder's team than they were against the Knicks. Like in this Thunder matchup, Nesmith and Nembhard are going to both have someone to guard on every possession. They're not going to be able to do a rotation. One of them is going to have to guard Shea, and one of them is going to have to guard Jalen Williams. There won't be as much of a rotation there. Maybe with TJ McConnell, but both Shea and Jalen Williams have the size advantage over TJ McConnell, where that could potentially be more of a mismatch than more of a competition. So they're both going to have to work harder this series. Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner, they're going to have to worry about Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hardenstein. Isaiah Hardenstein having I would say an equal defensive and rebound presence to Mitchell Robinson, but being a little more reliable on the offensive end because he's a way better free throw shooter. Chet Holmgren, obviously being one of those unicorn bigs, stretch bigs who can put up points. Put up points in the paint. He can shoot from beyond the 3-point line. It's not going to be more of a rotation between Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam because they're going to have someone to guard consistently throughout this series. You know, and if you're looking, it's really going to be like what the Pacers were able to do to the Knicks. The Thunder is going to be able to do that to the Pacers in terms of a defensive rotation. Tyrese Haliburton is going to be under way more defensive pressure because Shea's going to most likely be guarding him, who is a true two-way player. Andrew Nembhard is not going to have as many open looks because Jalen Williams is going to be on him. Aaron Nesmith is not going to have as many open looks because Lou Dort is most likely going to be on him. Lou Dort could guard anyone from Tyrese Haliburton or Pascal Siakam. So it's going to be, the Pacers are going to have a limited amount of open looks and opportunities against the Thunder as they did in comparison to what they had against the Knicks. Pascal Siakam is going to have a limited amount of open looks because it's either going to be Isaiah Hartenstein on him, Lou Dort on him, or Chet Holmgren on him. Lou Dort obviously being a lockdown defender, a true defender. Isaiah Hartenstein being a reliable big who can play defense and sort of contain the paint area. Chet Holmgren not really being a defender per se, but just his size and arm length sort of making up for that lack in defensive skill, just allowing him to take up surface area, making it more difficult for Pascal Siakam to put up a shot. So what the Pacers were able to do to the Knicks in their last series in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Thunder is going to be able to replicate that against the Pacers in the finals. The Pacers are going to be getting a taste of their own medicine in this series. They're going to be getting a taste of their own medicine. What they were able to do against the Knicks, the Thunder is going to be able to do that same thing against them in the finals. But getting back to Shea, one of the Thunder's biggest advantage in this series, the MVP. If Shea wins a ring this year, we have to start looking at Shea as a top 3 player in the NBA. If Shea wins a ring this year, the same year he won an MVP, if he wins a finals MVP, the same year he wins a regular season MVP, we got to start looking at Shea as a top 3 player in the NBA uncontested. Top 3 with Giannis and Jokic. It's got to be them 3. All 3 are champions. All 3 are MVPs. All 3 are really, you could call them two-way players. You know, Jokic being, ain't nobody pushing Jokic around in the paint. Nobody's bodying him in the paint except for maybe a healthy Joel Embiid. But we know that's a rare sight when we see it. So we got to start looking at Shea as a top 3 player in the NBA. If Shea, especially if he wins a ring this year, Shea is better than Tatum. Shea is definitely better than Ant. Shea is better than Luka. Shea is better than any other player in the NBA right now, other than Giannis and Jokic. If he wins this year, those are the only 2 players I'm putting over Shea. MVP, 3-time first team All-NBA, multiple All-Star selections. Like Shea is doing what Shea is accomplishing now is what we were told in terms of basketball fans, what we were told Anthony Edwards would be able to accomplish by now. What we were told Luka would be able to accomplish by now. What we were told Jason Tatum would be able to accomplish by now. Like Shea has the accolades. He has the skill, he has the status, he has the body of work, he has the resume to be considered as a top 3 player in the NBA over anyone else aside from Giannis and Jokic. He does. And he has more of it. He has the biggest case for the face of the NBA right now, as opposed to Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards. Jason Tatum, y'all know what I think about Jason Tatum being a phony, not really being a true superstar, in my opinion. Like he has the resume to be a superstar. That's sort of a separate conversation, but he definitely has a leg up on Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum being more of a phony, in my opinion, not really having to overcome his circumstances. He came in, Jason Tatum is a silver spoon superstar. He's a silver spoon superstar. He came into the league in a great situation, never really having to work hard for his status, for what he has been able to achieve. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was traded to OKC. OKC was nothing before Shai. They were nothing before Shai. Shai comes in, now they're an emerging squad. They're an emerging squad. They have an emerging big three that is teammates that really Shai made better in Jalen Williams and in Chet Holmgren. A team that was really formed and built around Shai, raising this team to a finals favorite. You can't compare him and Jason Tatum. He's definitely over Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is a champion, but he's not an MVP. Jason Tatum is a champion, but he's not an Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Like, Shai Gilgeous would be a champion, but would also be an MVP. Would also be a Finals MVP. Jason Tatum is a champion, but he's not a Finals MVP. Like he has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, no question, would be better than Jason Tatum. In my opinion, he's better than Jason Tatum now. But if he wins this year, it would be inarguable that Shai is better than Jason Tatum. Shai is better than Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is, definitely an emerging star. I think he definitely still has a high ceiling, but Shai to this point has been a better playoff player than Anthony Edwards. A lot of this postseason, especially against the Thunder in their last series, Anthony Edwards looked more like a second option than a first option. Anthony Edwards looked like, even though he's not, he looked like the second best player on his team behind Julius Randle against the Thunder. Like, it's like, you can't say Anthony Edwards is better than Shai if he hasn't done anything to prove that. He's won some notable playoff series for sure. But he hasn't been an all NBA first team guy yet. He hasn't been a champion yet. The biggest series of his career to this point, against Thunder being the best team in the NBA. He didn't show up when the Timberwolves needed him to show up. He didn't elevate his team past the Thunder. Anthony Edwards hasn't done anything to sort of set himself above or on Shai's level. But Shai has set himself above Anthony Edwards' level. Even looking at Luka Doncic, like, you got to put Shai over Luka right now. You have to. And I'm not allowing this past season to taint my vision of Luka and the guy, the type of player Luka is. But because Luka is definitely in a higher regard to me than Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards, for sure. If we're talking about this, I may think Shai should be seen as a top 3 player in the NBA, but Luka's right under. Luka's top 5. He's top 5. That's another all pro guy, all NBA guy, all league guy. Definitely one of them ones. One of the elite, the elite of elite. But if Shai were to win a ring this year, Shai would be accomplishing something that Luka hasn't been able to accomplish yet. He would be a winner, or more of a winner than Luka. Luka doesn't have a ring yet. Luka doesn't have an MVP yet. Now, he had the numbers to win MVP last year. Well, really, almost every year for the past 4 or 5 years. He's been in the race, so I mean, it's hard to knock them against it, but he doesn't have the hardware. He doesn't have the hardware. But focusing specifically on the championship discussion, because we know Luka's numbers have always been there. Points, rebounds, assists. I mean, Luka last year was 28, 8, and 7. That's while being hurt. That's while being in between teams. He averaged close to a triple-double the year before that. Shea this year, though, 32, 5, and 6. I mean, that's an MVP. That's MVP numbers. But Shea this year could accomplish something that Luka hasn't been able to yet, and that's winning a championship. So the fact that they both have MVP numbers, they consistently have MVP level production, but Shea is a champion while Luka is not. You have to put Shea over Luka right now. You have to. And the fact that Shea is an overall better basketball player than Luka. He's a better all-around basketball player than Luka Doncic right now. Because Luka, even though he is just a wizard and just a beast on the offensive end, 3-level scorer, can score from anywhere on the court, whether it's in the paint, back to the basket, off the dribble from behind the three-point line, off the dribble and charging the lane. I mean, there's nothing he can't do on the offensive end, including rebounding, getting, taking over on the boards, moving the ball around, assists, making his teammates better. He's still a liability on defense. Luka's a liability on defense. Shea, while still being a master manipulator on offense, being able to score from anywhere on the court in the same exact ways, off the dribble from beyond the three-point line, back to the basket, in the paint, mid-range game is there. He can pass. He can also rebound. He's also a much better defender than Luka. He's a much better defender. Shea is really one of the best two-way players in the NBA, which is why he should be held in such high regard, which is why he is first-team All-NBA every year and has been for the past 3 years. Shea is a better all-around basketball player than Luka. And if he wins a ring this year, that just adds more of an argument to his case. You got to have Shea as a top 3 player in the NBA this year. So OKC is definitely going to beat the Pacers this year in 5. I think we could possibly see a sweep this year just because of how outmatched this Pacers team is. Even though they are deep, they do have the talent, they do have the coaching. The Thunder have that much more in those categories than the Pacers. Everything the Pacers do, the Thunder does better. I do think the Pacers would have more of a shot at beating the Thunder if Tyrese Haliburton was an actual superstar. If Tyrese Haliburton was a real superstar, an actual superstar, not just what people are calling him, but if he was an actual superstar, the Pacers would have a shot. But the fact is, he's not. Tyrese Haliburton is not an actual superstar yet. He's not one right now. I think he will be for sure. He's young. He will be 100%. But he's not one right now. He's not. Like, the biggest reason why he is not is because he's inconsistent. He's inconsistent. Like, Tyrese Haliburton, if he is a superstar, he's the most inconsistent superstar in the NBA. Like, we're talking about a guy who definitely he can give you 20 to 30 on his best nights. Sometimes he'll give you 30, 35. He's a guy who can give you 20 to 30 points in a game. But he's also the same guy who will give you 4 to 8 points in a game. And that's in the playoffs or regular season. He's a guy that can give you 36 and 12 in a playoff game. Will be able to hit a clutch game winner or a game tire, a game decider in a playoff game. But he'll also be the same guy that'll give you 4-3 in a playoff game. In a momentum shifting playoff game, will give you 4 points and 3 assists. He did that against the Knicks this year. He's just too inconsistent. Like, if you're looking at superstars are known for consistently producing, for consistently putting up numbers and impacting the game. Tyrese Haliburton doesn't do that on a consistent basis. Not in terms of a superstar. He doesn't have superstar caliber consistency. He just doesn't. Now we're seeing bright spots from him. He is an emerging star for sure. Like, he is on his way to becoming a superstar for sure. We could possibly see him take that next step next season, but he hasn't taken that step yet. He hasn't. He hasn't done enough. He doesn't have the body of work. He doesn't have the resume to be considered as a legit superstar in the NBA. There's no way you can look at Tyrese Haliburton and put him up there with Luka. There's no way you can look at Tyrese Haliburton and put him up there with Shea. There's no way you could put him up there with Giannis or Jokic, guys who were champions, who were MVPs and champions, who are guys who are consistently first team All NBA. You can't put him up there. You can't put him up there with these elite guys in the league. With the Bronze, with the Stephs, with the KDs. Even though those guys are older, they're still borderline superstars in the NBA. They haven't done enough to take themselves out of that superstar conversation. Not enough to where it just cancels out the huge body of work that we have seen from Steph, Bron, and KD specifically. Champions, MVPs, scoring leaders, assist leaders. Like, you can't look at Tyrese Haliburton and put him on the same level with all of those guys who are bona fide superstars. Giannis, Jokic, Shea, Luka, Bron, KD, Steph. You can't, there's nothing Tyrese Haliburton has done to put him in that conversation. There's nothing. Another huge reason why Tyrese Haliburton isn't a superstar, speaking of things he hasn't done, he hasn't won one meaningful playoff series. He hasn't won one meaningful playoff series. And when I say meaningful playoff series, I mean where the cards aren't all stacked, where the deck isn't stacked in his favor. Tyrese Haliburton hasn't won one meaningful playoff series. Like, superstars don't necessarily have to be champions, but they do have to be winners somewhat. They have to be somewhat capable of winning games against the odds. Like, Tyrese Haliburton hasn't won one meaningful playoff series. If you're looking at all of Haliburton's playoff series, he's either, like I said before in my finals analysis, the Pacers are used to having one of three advantages. It's either coaching, it's either depth, or it's health, or talent, They're used to having that advantage. In the playoffs, they've seen an injured Bucks team twice, one of which Giannis didn't play at all, and where Dame missed multiple games. Then this year, hardly seeing Damian Lillard at all. No, obviously Chris Middleton isn't a Buck anymore. They saw a Bucks team this year where Bobby Portis was the second best player in a Bucks uniform. Behind a bona fide superstar in Giannis, who was averaging 33 and 12. Then they also see an injured Cavs team. An injured Cavs team, a team where they actually had a game where Darius Garland and Evan Mobley weren't on the court at all. Donovan Mitchell was dealing with nagging injuries throughout the entire series. So they had the health. They had the health in their as an advantage. Then they see a Knicks team. They see the Knicks first time. They see a Knicks team twice. The first time they see the Knicks are down to their 6'5" players because Tom Thibodeau is running his guys into the ground. Everybody's hurt. So they not only had the health, they had the depth and the health. Then this year's Knicks team, they had the depth, they had the coaching. And then even looking at just Tyrese, now I know you can't necessarily, you can't punish Tyrese Haliburton for who he has to play against. He has to play against who's on the court. But even looking at Tyrese Haliburton's production, Tyrese Haliburton didn't even put up superstar caliber numbers in those series. Tyrese Haliburton honestly performed like the second best player in a Pacers uniform throughout his playoff career. Throughout his playoff career, Tyrese Haliburton has looked like a second option in the postseason. Now, in reality, we know Tyrese Haliburton is the best player on the Pacers. We know that. I'm not saying that. But in terms of his production, he has looked like a second option against weaker teams in the playoffs. Tyrese Haliburton is honestly closer to being the second best second option in the NBA than he is to being a superstar. Look at it. He's closer to being the best second option in the NBA than he is to being a superstar. Pascal Siakam has honestly looked like the best player on this Pacers team in the postseason. Superstars aren't supposed to look like second options, let alone in the postseason, the most important time of the year. Real superstars don't look like second options in the postseason. And if you honestly look at it, the Pacers didn't really start making noise, making runs like this until Siakam was traded to Indiana. Until Siakam was traded to Indiana, the Pacers weren't even knocking on that door yet, really. Pascal Siakam has really outperformed Tyrese Haliburton more times than none in the postseason. If you're looking at all the series they have played so far in the postseason, they see the Bucks in 2024, last season. Haliburton averaged 16 points and 9 assists. Siakam averaged 22 points and 8 rebounds. That's against an injured Knicks team. Pascal Siakam outperformed Tyrese Haliburton against an injured Knicks team. You're looking at, against an injured Bucks team. Sorry, injured Bucks team, excuse me. That's against Giannis. Pascal Siakam was going head-to-head against Giannis. And he's still producing 22 points and 8 rebounds. Still outproducing Tyrese Haliburton. Tyrese Haliburton didn't have to put up with as much defensive pressure as Pascal Siakam. Not nearly as much defensive pressure as Pascal Siakam throughout their entire postseason, but yet Pascal Siakam still consistently outperforms Tyrese Haliburton. They see the Knicks that next round in 2024. Haliburton produces 21.7 assists. Siakam, 20 points and 6 rebounds. So, still right there. Still right there. They see the Bucks this year in 2025. No Damian Lillard. No Chris Middleton. Haliburton produces 17 points, 12 assists. Siakam produces 19 points and 6 rebounds. So he's not only doing his job as a big, as a defender, he's also scoring. He's outproducing Tyrese Haliburton on the offensive end. They see the Cavs that next round. Haliburton, 17.4 points, 7 assists. One of those games, he had 4 points. One of those games in the series, Haliburton had 4 points. Siakam, that same series, 17.8 points, 6 rebounds. They see the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Haliburton, 21 points, 10 assists. Siakam, 24 points. So Siakam consistently outperforms Tyrese Haliburton on the biggest stages. He not only outperforms Tyrese Haliburton on the offensive end, but he's also doing that while still doing his job as a big, getting rebounds and playing defense. Pascal Siakam has done more in the postseason for the Pacers, aside from the huge shots that Tyrese Haliburton hit, which were clutch. But Pascal Siakam has consistently outperformed Tyrese Haliburton on offense while still playing a major defensive role on the Pacers. Pascal Siakam, as a two-way player, has still been more productive than Tyrese Haliburton on the offensive end consistently, while still being more productive than Haliburton on the defensive end, because the Pacers don't rely on Haliburton to play defense. Haliburton didn't have to guard Jalen Brunson. He wasn't in that rotation with TJ McConnell, with Nesmith, with Nembhard, and trying to shut down and slow down Jalen Brunson. There wasn't anyone that he had to, he wasn't having to guard Donovan Mitchell consistently in that Cavs series. Damian Lillard wasn't on the floor most of the time for him to guard Damian Lillard in the series against the Bucks. So Pascal Siakam consistently has outperformed Tyrese Haliburton on the biggest stages, making himself look like more of a first option than Tyrese Haliburton in the playoffs. You can't call a guy like that a superstar if he is consistently being outperformed by his teammate, who is also a champion, on the biggest stages of the game. You just can't. You just can't. He has rarely outplayed Siakam in the regular season and in the postseason. But then something else Tyrese Haliburton doesn't have is accolades. Tyrese Haliburton does not have the accolades of a superstar. Now, he's had 2 All-Star appearances. He's been named to the 3rd team All-NBA twice. But those accolades don't make you a superstar. There are plenty of stars that have been named 3rd team All-NBA that aren't considered as superstars, at least during that period of time. Like Kemba Walker to the Hornets. He was a 4-time All-Star and has won 3rd team All-Selection, All-NBA selection. He's a star, not a superstar. No one is calling Kemba Walker a superstar. Kemba Walker really hasn't been a superstar at any point in his career in the NBA. He's on 3rd team. He's got a 3rd team selection with more All-Star appearances. De'Aaron Fox, another 3rd team All-NBA guy. A guy who I personally think is better and has a higher ceiling than Tyrese Haliburton. I never called De'Aaron Fox a superstar. I've never called De'Aaron Fox a superstar. I think he's a star. He's definitely a star, but he's not a superstar. Julius Randle, when he was on the Knicks, he's got a 3rd team and 2nd team All-NBA selection with 3 All-Star appearances. No one called him a superstar. He's been in the playoffs. He's made playoff runs. No one called him a superstar. He was a star, not a superstar. He is a star, not a superstar. Even looking at Chris Paul on the Suns, Chris Paul is a bona fide Hall of Famer. Unquestionably, one of the best point guards to ever play the game of basketball. For sure. But on the Suns, he wasn't a superstar. He was, you could say he was the glue of that offense, because we know how that offense sort of fell apart after he left. He's been the glue. He was the glue of that offense, but he wasn't a superstar. He was named 3rd team All-NBA. So if a Hall of Famer like Chris Paul during that time on the Suns wasn't a superstar because he got a 3rd team All-NBA selection, there is no way we can say Tyrese Haliburton is a superstar based off of his 3rd team All-NBA selection. There's just no way. He doesn't have the accolades worthy of a superstar. If he was a true superstar, maybe we would see a tighter race. Maybe we would see a tighter series in the finals this year. The Pacers would have a better chance at contending, competing, and beating the Thunder if Tyrese Haliburton was a true superstar, but he isn't. He doesn't have the accolades. He's inconsistent. He hasn't won any meaningful playoff series to prove he's a superstar. And in those series that either the competition wasn't as good, they weren't as talented, the teams weren't as deep, they weren't as healthy, Tyrese Haliburton still underperformed for who he is supposed to be. He still underperformed in regards to his teammate in Pascal Siakam, who is supposed to be a second option, but who, through Tyrese Haliburton's production, looked like a first option over Tyrese Haliburton. There's nothing Tyrese Haliburton has done to make himself look like a superstar from what we have seen so far, even including this playoff run. But that's all for today's edition of No Shame with Shane. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms, and I will be back later on with more shameless takes.